Ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, I just want to mention.
Apologies, Minister. Our colleagues in the media are complaining they can't see you, so we are going to fix the microphone.
Oh.
Yeah, you can just take it.
The KFM mic.
Oh, which
It's
one?
too
is
high
it?
on her face.
This one.
That one, yes.
So we drop it.
I don't know if you can go down.
We drop all of them. Please. This is fine. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to state clearly that government is deeply concerned about the ongoing conflict involving the minibus taxi industry and the city of Cape Town and Cape Town, which has escalated into a strike as a result of the impounding of the taxi vehicles by the city of Cape Town. We condemn the violence that has characterized the strike in the strongest possible terms. Those who perpetuate criminality must face the full mighty of the law. Government will not tolerate lawlessness irrespective of who the perpetrator is. Our democracy is founded on human rights, and the exercise of those rights require that we respect the rights of others. It can never be acceptable for those who are aggrieved by the actions of the city to blockade roads and undermine the rights of ordinary citizens to travel or access schools, places of work, and economic activities. It is equally not acceptable for officers of the law to conduct themselves in the manner that violates the law and the rights of citizens, including the taxi industry. We will therefore act decisively, working closely with the law enforcement agencies and authorities to uproot this criminality. We call on the taxi industry leadership to denounce any form of violence or intimidation by its members. I have personally intervened in efforts to find a lasting solution to the impasse through numerous engagements with the taxi industry under the leadership of Santako. I've also met with the Premier of the Western Cape, the MEC of Transport, and the city led by the Mayor and the MEC responsible for transport in Cape Town. We've made strides in addressing the root causes of the current tensions, and we are confident that we will find each other in the process. The city of Cape Town introduced some years ago what we refer to as the conditions of operating licenses, which the taxi industry has expressed reservations on. The task team that was established to address the concerns has not made headways, resulting in the city implementing the impounding or continuing to implement the impounding of vehicles based on the conditions. It is an integral part of our legal system that administrative decisions must be based on the principle of legality. We have national laws in place that govern the infringements and penalties dealt with in the contested operating licenses conditions. The national laws are in place to ensure fair rules applicable to all citizens, irrespective of the city or province they reside in. This is a constitutional mandate to ensure order and effectiveness of the rule of law. It can never be that a city will define itself outside the parameters of the national laws and implement penalties that are out of sync with these laws. We therefore call on the city of Cape Town to respect and uphold national laws as they currently stand. To this end, we call on the city to return to the negotiating table to address the areas of disagreement and demonstrate a genuine effort to find a lasting resolution to the current challenges. On the basis of this consideration, we therefore call on the city to immediately release without any conditions all vehicles impounded based on the National Road Traffic Act and leave those that are impounded on the basis of the National Land Transport Act of 2009. We remain committed to moving with speed in finding an amicable solution that must enable the taxi industry to resume operation and call off the strike. Such an outcome is in the interest of the country and, of course, the industry. Our efforts to regulate the taxi industry must be underpinned by new.
The Minister was obviously in Cape Town engaging with the political leadership of the Western Cape and Cape Town. I just want to know, how have those engagements been? We do know, obviously, this is obviously a political situation and a different party is there in Cape Town. So I just want to know, has the political leadership in Cape Town and the Western Cape been amenable to government intervention and stuff like that? And then just my last question is regarding, we do know that the previous Minister of Transport talked about formalizing the transport sector. I just want, the taxi industry, my apologies. I just want to know, in terms of that process of formalizing it, how far have we been, and you know, what successes have there been, or what breakdowns have there been in that part of formalizing the taxi industry? Thank you.
Thanks for that. Can I have two more hands? We moved too quickly. Can I see two more hands? In the absence of the hands at the moment, Minister will allow you to respond. And of course, the Minister will delegate where she needs to.
Maybe the first question is on the two different legislations. We have the National Land Transport Act. The issue of impoundment of taxi or minibuses is actually found in that legislation. It is in Section 87 of the National Land Transport Act. And that act specifies as to when can you impound a minibus taxi. It actually is based on the operating licenses in the main. And those, therefore, are the conditions over which you can impound a minibus taxi. Then you have got another act, which is the National Road Transport Act. The National Road Transport Act, whatever infringement happens there that is in that act, it applies to all South Africans. It will talk to, for instance, drunken driving. What do we do if we found you driving and you are under the influence of alcohol? It sets in sanctions for that, and that applies to all of us. So it is already the issue, for instance, I'm making an example, the issue of drunken driving is already legislated and the sanctions are there. What is happening in the Western Cape? They then have decided to take such issues and put them under the operating licenses conditions as reasons for impounding a car. So they are actually overreaching and extending the legislation that already exists. They are adding a sanction that does not exist in the legislation. And that sanction is only meant for the taxi industry only. Now you can't do that, because it would mean that we can extend any legislation. If we think that any legislation has weaknesses, you follow an amendment process that goes to Parliament. You don't use anything like your conditions in order to strengthen any weak, if it is weak, legislation. You amend the legislation. As a result, quite a number of taxis, up to 6,000, they are impounded on the basis of a wrong legislation, which does not actually give sanctions of impoundment. Reckless driving sounds very serious. Surely you would think that if it is reckless driving, you may impound a car. But in terms of the National Road Traffic Act, the sanction is imprisonment, it's fine, or both. It does not include impoundment. But the Western Cape have then added impoundment, which is not in the National Road Traffic Act, nor in the National Land Traffic Act. So you have got that. As a result, their vehicles are impounded every day. Impounded for changing a lane without indicating. This, of course, is wrong. It can never be undermined. However, in terms of the National Road Traffic Act, the sanction is not impoundment. So you don't know as to where they're getting that from. So they're actually impounding vehicles not in terms of the law. They have some regulations and laws that they are creating on things that they are already legislated. And you can't do that. Because what it means, we can at any time decide to take away or to use whatever that we like, even on human rights. That is the problem that we have in the Western Cape. And if you look at the notices that they give, if you like, it will be your ticket. They don't even specify as to why a car is impounded. They just say you have infringed the conditions of the operating license. And those conditions, they are more than 50. It can be a light, the brake light that is not working. It can be reckless driving. It can be the operating license that you don't have, which is, of course, is in terms of the National Land Transport Act. They don't specify. And people there, the taxi industry there is made to pay these hefty sanctions and hefty amounts that they have set. If you look, they even report on the money that they are actually getting from the taxi industry, and they budget on that. It cannot be. The mayor, in fact, the MMC responsible for safety and security in the Western Cape, he says for one truck that is banned, we are going to impound 25 taxis. No, you can't say that. Wrong as it is to touch taxis, but you cannot therefore say randomly, because you are actually confirming the fact that it is alleged that he said that. You are actually confirming the fact that your impoundment is not informed by any law. You are just doing it. And this is what is frustrating the taxi industry there. We met with the city yesterday. I must commend the Premier of the Western Cape. I must also commend the MEC responsible for transport in the Western Cape, MEC Mackenzie. But the city is so arrogant. They decided that they're not going to participate in the negotiations. They decided that they have actually issued the conditions and they're not budging. And those conditions, they actually include these things that are not in the NLTA, but that are in the NRTA. And those, they do not, as a matter of fact, have a sanction of what is this, impounding the car. That is the problem that we have. However, late in the evening, somehow they indicated that they were going to subject these to their legal people. We already are doing it as the Department of Transport to subject this. We have advised the Western Cape province to say they must actually set aside these conditions so that it is only the national act that gets implemented and applied in the Western Cape, at least for now, so that the taxi industry can call off the strike. Because whatever the mayhem that is happening there, we believe that once the taxi industry goes back to operations, then of course the mayhem can actually be reduced. We are concerned about the number of people that are not able to go to work, the children that are, learners that are not able to go to school, and the frustration that is happening there. But we're also concerned about the picture that is created about us in the international arena, particularly because this actually happens at the time when we are hosting the Netball World Cup. So these are the issues. Those are the two legislations that are being, we believe, implemented and executed wrongly. There are conditions. They are there in the National Land Transport Act. Impound on those. The taxi industry was actually calling on me to declare a moratorium on the impoundment of cars, and I said I can't, because there is a legislation. I don't have powers to declare any moratorium on any legislation. So I can't do that. So the conditions that lead to empowerment in terms of the National Land Transport Act, they remain in force. But the conditions that are being added as sanctions that are not in the legislation in the Western Cape do not have any legal standing. They don't. They simply don't have any legal standing as far as we are concerned. And therefore, we're going back to the Western Cape this afternoon to actually check as to whether the city is willing and or it continues to be adamant. If that is the case, then we'll have to see as to what we do at national level. We already have some plan B, but we will definitely not at this moment tell you as to what the plan B is. But we are planning on the plan B because they said they are implementing our national legislations and they use them in these conditions. They actually refer to National Road Traffic Act, National Land Transport Act as conditions, yet they are referring to them wrongly. And we are saying it cannot be. These are national legislations. They apply as they are to all South Africans. If we were to impound cars for these things that are in those conditions, nobody will be on the road in South Africa. And it cannot be that we have some laws that only apply to the taxi industry with all its challenges, and those laws that apply to other South Africans. These conditions do not apply to the bus industry there, to the e-hailing industry there. They only apply to the minibus taxis. It cannot be. It simply cannot be. So that is why we are saying to that JP Smith, you are not the law. You are simply an MMC. And if everybody in the Western Cape is afraid of you, we're not afraid of him. He must apply the law as law. He's not a goddess of South Africa. If they are afraid of him, we will tell him what to get off and ensure that he applies the law as it is. He is not God. Everybody in the Western Cape, in the DA and so on, when he speaks, it's like it's God or Gabriel speaking. He's not Gabriel. He's not. He's not to come to earth and tell us about that Jesus is coming. No, thank you very much.
It was a mouthful. It was a mouthful. Can you take another second round of questions? You see, there's one hand here. You can go ahead, sir.
Yes, sorry, it's Alex from News 24. So I just want to double check in terms of what you spoke about now with the legislation. So you're saying that the city of Cape Town effectively can't make bylaws, their own bylaws based on the different national legislations. Is that what you're saying? I just want to try and understand.
Okay. Any other question? Any question? Did you want to respond, Minister? Did you?
No, I thought just quick one there.
Just wait. Can we take Ngobile, go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to check because you're saying this is part of Ngobile from Newsroom Africa. We just want to clarify because the minister's just explaining that these are things that are added to what was already there, which means they were not part of the legislature. So is this then illegal?
I'll try. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think the question is really aimed at whether we are saying the city can make bylaws. I think the minister is saying the city can, but in these particular instances, our sense as a department is that the city has gone beyond what the national legislation allows them to do, and she has actually made example. So if, for instance, in terms of the NLTA relevant sections, impoundment only arises if you're on a route that you're not allowed to be on, or you're driving an unroadworthy vehicle. But the city then creates additional, there's actually a set of additional conditions that have been published. And our sense is that those are outside of the law that exist. So that's really what the minister is saying. I hope I've covered both questions. Thanks.
And you cannot, they can make bylaws, and DG, as he is saying, they can make bylaws, but those cannot be in conflict with the national legislation, as no national legislation can be in conflict with the Constitution. It's as simple as all that. No conflict. They can on the basis of the national legislation. Or if there is no legislation, then they can. However, they cannot have a bylaw that is in conflict with the national legislation, as the national legislation cannot, you cannot have it if it is in conflict with the Constitution. It works like that, sir. Thank you. I don't know whether you're saying adding something, but we didn't. I didn't understand the question.
No, I just wanted to ask with regards to what the city, what he was explaining.
Oh.
Does this mean that it's illegal what they have done because it's outside of the law?
What is not illegal is for the city to have bylaws. But those bylaws, when they are in conflict with the national legislation, then it's illegal. Like in this case, they can't impound a car for drunken driving. I'm making an example, and I'm actually referring to this because even in my mind it sounds bad. However, in terms of the National Road Traffic Act, drunken driving, its sanction is imprisonment, fine, or both. It does not include impoundment. The Western Cape, on something that is already not Western Cape, as the city of Cape Town, on something that is already legislated and has the sanctions, it adds a sanction. That is not informed by any process, any legislative process. So it adds a sanction that is not in the National Land Transport Act, nor in the National Road Traffic Act. And that, if we were to allow something like that in South Africa, then we'd have chaos. Chaos would actually reign.
Okay. Thanks, Minister. And DG, do we have any other follow-ups? I see two hands. We're coming to quite close to wrapping up this part. Yes, sir. News 24, and then.
Alex Mitchell again, News 24. Given that, Minister, given that the department's obviously taken the stance that these bylaws are in contravention, should the department not then approach the courts for a resolve?
Thank you so much. Minister Pitso Manemane, Kaya News. Minister, are we still talking about taxi strike here, or have we gone beyond that? Thank you. Have we gone beyond the taxi strike, Minister? Because we're talking about laws here. Are we now heading to taxi war, or a fight between the taxis and the city? Thank you.
Okay. Those are the two questions. Any other? I'm trying to say, yes, Patricia. Yes, you can just take
Good morning, Patricia Fasahi from the SABC. Minister, what's the timeline that you're giving? Obviously, you're saying you'll be traveling to the city this afternoon, but in terms of the vehicles that must be released, when exactly are you instructing them to release them? Is it immediately? When? Tomorrow? So what's the timeline that you're giving?
Maybe the first question is, why are we not considering approaching the court? It's an option that we have, but we're still giving the opportunity to negotiations. What is, of course, disturbing in this whole thing is that where we are negotiating, there is the province of the Western Cape, national, and of course, the Santaco. The people that are supposed to be there have decided that they're not going to participate. And that is the city, which is very key. So we sit there we agree on something, but then the MEC still has to phone somebody somewhere, and that somebody who is not present where we are will then say whatever. Sometimes they issue statements that are conflicting with what we are doing or what we are negotiating about, making our negotiations very difficult. When we met with them yesterday, we requested that they give decisive and authoritative powers to whoever is being their chief negotiator. But they have not done so. So we have got that challenge. They've still got, and that is why it takes so long for us to caucus as government even and go back to Santaco with whatever position. Because whatever that we talk about, we write, then somebody must call somebody, and that somebody must call somebody, and then all, even if they agree, they still have to call their God, who is J.P. Smith, who then decide to rubbish everything. And therefore we back on square one. That is the challenge that we have in. And then of course, what about, whether we're talking about the taxi strike or whatever, say the taxi strike emanates from the impoundment of their vehicles. 6,000 of them, they are impounded. They are not in operation. And why that impoundment is because the city is executing and implementing a wrong legislation. And that is why we are forced to talk about these two pieces of legislation. Which one gives powers to all of us, not only the city of Cape Town, to all of us even at national level, to impound a taxi vehicle. It is in the NLTA section 87. Can the National Road Traffic Act give powers? Minister Begipele, they actually had a roadblock in Durban. He tells me that we stopped about 36 people that were driving under the influence of alcohol. They could not impound any because it is not in the Act. They can't apply and implement and execute something that is not in the Act. And that is why we are forced now to talk about the implication and the implementation and execution of the Act, because that is where the challenge is. I think I have these things I can actually show you. Any one of us here, if you were to be subjected to such conditions, you would not want to live, because you would know immediately that your car will be impounded. And they do this even, I just want to say again this, even with the first blockade of the roads, first time, I think it was on Thursday, they were negotiating, the city and whoever, or whether it was him that was negotiating. Somewhere the Santaco members called to say, but you are negotiating, but our cars are being impounded here. And that is when Santaco decided to leave the negotiations. When they left, the smith of them heard about it and intensified the impounding, literally saying, go and stand outside. They've got a name of it, but it would be an equivalent of a taxi rank. So they stood on the entrance and exit at the taxi rank. Those that were inside could not leave because they knew their vehicles would be impounded, and those that were outside could not come in because their vehicles would then be impounded. What then happened is that those that were outside then decided, out of frustration, of course, which is wrong, but then to obstruct the road, so as to draw attention to everybody that, but we have a situation here where we can't move, we can't transport our people, because our cars now are for sure going to be impounded, because nobody tells the MMC responsible for safety and security in the Western Cape. He is a god there. They all pray him.
Thanks, Minister. At this point, we're going to take questions online. There's a few questions there. Essay Hassan, if you can read those questions for us.
Yes, Minister, we have a WhatsApp with journalists who report on transport news. There are 3 questions, but I think the other 2 you've already responded. I will read the first one only. It's questions for the Minister. It's Sune Payne from Kilimamuri. The question starts, given the seriousness of the situation since last week, why did the Minister, who is the political head of transport nationally, leave and return to Johannesburg over the weekend? Does that not seem counterproductive to a highly stressed situation? The number 2 was, what is the minister's view of what is stalling the talks? And 3 was, when is the minister returning to Cape Town? But I think those 2 have been responded. Thank you.
Okay. Minister.
Maybe let me start with what I did. Arriving in Cape Town, remember the negotiations between Santaco, the city, and everybody had collapsed. I went to request and to plead with Santaco that they return to negotiations, which they agreed to. We attended a meeting with the city. I went to meet with the city, with the province, again, in the absence of Santaco. We discussed, disagreed, and agreed. And I've invited Santaco to come, and then we addressed them. There were issues that they were not in agreement with, but then there were those that they said they can take to their members. That was going to be on Saturday. And therefore, on Saturday, we had to wait for await the outcome of Santaco's negotiations with its members. I just want to emphasize the point that even now, I have the Minister of Transport from DRC, who I invited to come to South Africa, not anticipating that we're going to have this. And because of that, I then had to fly back, so that, of course, I'm able to take him through the program that we have with him. On Sunday, we got the information that indeed, in fact, later, that there are issues that the membership is raising of Santaco. And those that were sent to the department and myself. We responded as the department, particularly on the matters that touch the National Department of Transport, to say this is what we think should happen. And on Sunday, having forwarded that information, then of course the city and the province, they met. They were just on the edge of reaching an agreement. When again the MMC for Safety and Security, seemingly in camera, saw the securities that take care of the leadership of Santaco, and sent whoever, but the law enforcement, to go and search them. When that happened, then the negotiations collapsed. That is now on Sunday. When they were just about to sign, for that matter, maybe to sign things that are not even correct, but they were just about to sign off those. And then the negotiations collapsed. It therefore called on me again to leave the minister, who is still here in South Africa, in the morning yesterday, to go and join, in fact on Monday, to go and join the city and the negotiations. And that is why he is here. We met yesterday. We agreed that the city and the province are going to meet as cabinet, so I can't sit in their cabinet. And when that happened, then I said I could actually rush so that at least I'm able, together with the Minister of Transport from DRC, can sign off whatever that he is here for. And that is why I'm here. I am flying back to Cape Town again this afternoon, and I will remain in Cape Town until the solution is found. But this matter is in the hands of the city now than any one of us. If the city continues just to be arrogant, then we have a problem. We said to them, if we were to agree on these matters in terms of the law, the conditions of impoundment in terms of the law, and therefore release cars that are impounded on the basis of the wrong legislation, the strike will be called off. They're saying they're not budging, and they're not going to speak to, they call them thugs. They're saying they're not going to call to talk to thugs. I don't see the taxi industry and those people as thugs. They might have their own challenges and issues, but I see them as people that are in business, that are transporting our people. And where there's lawlessness, I believe that the law must take its course, whether it is the taxi industry and so on, their fathers and brothers and sisters to their families. And I don't think that any mayor has a right to call them thugs.
Thanks, Minister. Okay, the DG wants to respond to one question on the impoundment. DG, just a brief.
No, it's not an empowerment. I thought there was a question asked about empowerment.
Impoundment.
But I don't see the colleague who asked it. I just wanted to indicate that the program for taxi empowerment is ongoing. You might recall that in 2020 there was a national taxi lekgotla, and it took a set of resolutions on what needs to happen in foregrounding or in implementing empowerment in the taxi industry. So there are a couple of elements. One was that we agreed, the industry in fact agreed, that we need to improve the regulatory framework. In other words, who can come on board, who's on which route, how do we take out those that are illegal? That was one. Secondly, how do we improve the labor relations arrangements? In other words, how do you ensure that the people who are employed work hours that are complied with our laws across the country, and that the businesses themselves of the respective taxi operators are in fact legal? And thirdly, probably the one of the key elements is professionalization, so that when you go to taxi rank or you are in any taxi, you are treated in compliance with our laws. So that work is happening, and in fact is going to lead us to where we can then have benefits that are drawing down from government in support of the taxi industry, irrespective of what association they belong to. So I just want to say it's ongoing work, but we're at that stage where we're cleaning up. I thought just that input must be heard. Thanks, Minister.
Minister, just last question from Kaya. You can go ahead, sir.
Thank you so much. Minister, what impact has this created for tomorrow? It's Women's Day tomorrow. What impact has this caused with regard to the preparation? Just to follow up again, Minister, going to Cape Town today, back to the talks, what can we expect? What different approach can we expect from you? Thank you.
Yeah, indeed, it is unfortunate that, but I don't want to speak on issues that for another minister. It is for the Minister of Arts and Culture, Sports and Recreation. But I don't think that the Women's Day celebration will still happen in the Western Cape or Cape Town. I don't think so. I think allegedly, I don't have any confirmation. It's actually been moved, so that is possible. But I'm subject to corrections. But for now, I don't think that it's going to continue in Cape Town. That's one. I'm going there to Cape Town first to hear about the outcome of the discussions between, in fact, of Cabinet of the Western Cape and the city, to hear as to what the outcomes of that are and what then they will have said to Santaco. And of course, if none of that gives us the results that we want, then we'll have to look for other options that we have said they're already in our minds. Like I've said, we are already involving our legal minds on these matters to see as to what are the legal conditions and legal avenues that are there before us so that we can deal with this matter. The sooner the strike is ended, the better, so that people can return, and even the operators can start operating and be able to pay for the taxes at the end of the month, because they are owing those taxes. So yes, that is what we're thinking. We really would want to see this strike coming to an end. It has taken long and the impact is negative. Remember, if it is true, there's already been a travel alert by UK. This is that, not just for the Western Cape, not for the city of Cape Town, but for South Africa as such. And that is why, as National Department of Transport, we are not saying I'm Minister of the ANC and that is the province of DA. That can never count, not now. What is counting is that there is a problem in one part of South Africa and we have got to be there to assist. And really, I think I must say again, I really want to thank the Premier of the Western Cape. He's under immense pressure, political pressure for that matter. And as well as MEC for Transport, Mackenzie. We've been working with him. And it's not for free, but we've been working with him. He's been there up to the last minute. And he keeps us informed about everything that is happening. So I really want to thank them for that. But I can't say that for the city. Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, if there's any other question, that brings us to the end of the last segment. Any question, Mobile? Are you looking at me for the question? Oh, okay. So that brings us to the end of this particular session, colleagues. I do want to interest you to the one-on-one at the end of the second session. The second session, I'm assuming Dichi is not going to take us that long. It is the signing, so I would ask you to remain so that we can then get into the signing. So at this point, allow the minister to go back and to prepare themselves, and then they can come back again. It's going to be quick. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Minister and the DJ. Only one question. Colleagues, as our dignitaries take their positions, I do want to say that this part of the program, the DG is going to take over, and then I'll come back at the end for Q&As. Advocate James Mlau is going to take over, and then is going to do the introductions according. DG, over to you.
Thanks very much, Program Director. Colleagues, afternoon again.
Bon après-midi.
The Minister and the delegation have been here, fourth day today, on this visit, which I'm sure they will now want, respectively, to just give us a reflection on how it went.
Les ministres ainsi que leur délégation étaient ici pratiquement 4 jours. Donc aujourd'hui, ils sont là juste pour nous donner l'aperçu général de ce qui s'est passé pendant ces 4 jours.
I think it's taken for granted that in South Africa, in the National Department of Transport, we are responsible, among others, for the maritime sector, the aviation sector, as well as roads. And so they will reflect on the work that has been worked on together by our respective departments of the respective countries, as well as the agencies, and therefore the agreements that are intended to be taken forward in the respective sectors.
C'est peut-être des fois par mégarde qu'en Afrique du Sud, nous considérons que le département des transports s'occupe seulement des transports routiers ou bien des ferroviaires, maritimes, mais cette fois-ci, vous aurez quand même la conclusion de tous les travaux que nous avons effectués dans différents secteurs de transport, pas seulement les 3 que nous connaissons souvent.
It is possible that the ministers will have respective notes, but we thought for this session it might assist that they just get an opportunity to reflect to yourselves, and your questions might be based on those reflections. And later on, they're going to do the signing.
C'est pas possible que les ministres peuvent avoir leurs petites notes pour refléter de ce qui s'est passé, mais nous disons qu'avec le média, vous pouvez poser vos questions, et après, il y aura le temps de faire la signature sur le communiqué conjoint.
So maybe to start us off then, if I may, with great respect, call upon the Honorable Minister, His Excellency, Mr. Chikunga, Minister for Transport and Communication Channels in the DRC, to make his comments.
De faire un commentaire sur les travaux qui s'est passé.
Your Excellency.
Son Excellence, à vous la parole.
Merci beaucoup, Didier.
Thank you very much, DG.
Je voudrais d'entrée, une fois de plus, remercier les 2 chefs d'État de nos 2 pays respectifs.
I'd rather at the same time thank the 2 heads of state from both countries.
Le président Félix Antoine Tshisekedi Chilombo pour la République démocratique du Congo.
The President, His Excellency Félix Tshisekedi Chilombo from the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Et le président Ramaphosa pour la République sud-africaine.
And His Excellency Ramaphosa from the Republic of South Africa.
Il est très important de les remercier parce qu'ils ont mené encore plus haut la vision de collaboration et de coopération entre les 2 pays. Tu dis? Ah oui.
Ok. Non, j'étais en train de dire qu'il fallait vraiment les féliciter parce qu'ils ont amené encore plus haut la vision de coopération et de collaboration entre nos 2 pays.
As I was saying, so we need to thank these 2 heads of state because they brought closer the cooperation between these 2 countries.
Donc, comme pour dire qu'entre les 2 pays, les relations sont très, très, très bonnes.
Just to say that between these 2 countries, relations are very, very good.
Comme vous le savez, au courant du mois de juillet passé, du 4 au 6,
As you know, last month on the 4th of July,
il y avait la grande commission mixte entre la République démocratique du Congo et la République sud-africaine à Kinshasa.
we had a bilateral in Kinshasa between the two countries, South Africa and DRC.
Et le président Cyril Ramaphosa a effectué personnellement un déplacement à Kinshasa.
And His Excellency President Ramaphosa came himself personally in Kinshasa.
Et bien entendu, il a été accueilli par son homologue Félix Antoine Tshisekedi.
Of course, he was received by his colleague and friend, His Excellency Félix Tshisekedi.
Et en marge de cette commission mixte, il y a eu le forum économique RDC République sud-africaine.
And in line of that commission, we had working relations between the two countries, economic relations between the two countries.
Et au cours duquel les deux présidents ont ouvert la porte aux investisseurs privés de deux pays de collaborer entre le privé.
During that period, so the two presidents have opened up the private sectors to work together with each other.
Et à l'issue de la grande commission, donc il y a eu beaucoup de recommandations.
And following the commission, we had many recommendations
qui ont concerné beaucoup de secteurs,
which concerned many sectors,
notamment le secteur des transports.
Effectively the transport sector.
Et Madame la ministre Chikunga et moi-même
The Excellency Minister Chikunga and myself
avons résolu d'accélérer les résolutions qui concernaient notre secteur.
have decided to accelerate some resolutions that regarding our sector.
Parce que nous avons réalisé que le secteur du transport est très vital, c'est vraiment la colonne vertébrale de nos économies.
Because we realize that the transport sector is very vital, which is the key of our economies.
Donc il fallait accélérer ce secteur.
So we had to accelerate that sector.
Et la vie, nous pouvons vraiment remarquer tous ensemble la part la plus importante que prend le transport dans nos vies de tous les jours.
And as we know in our today's life, we know what transport means to everyone.
Et dans l'amélioration de l'économie.
And how it contributes to the economy.
Alors, toujours au mois de juillet, vers le 18 ou le 17,
Again, in the same month of July, around between 17 or 18,
Madame la ministre Chikunga et moi-même avions effectué un déplacement en République démocratique du Congo, mais en province.
His Excellency Minister Chikunga came to South Africa and we had the ride together in the province, to Congo.
Nous l'avons
We had
accueilli.
the work together in DRC.
Nous l'avons accueilli à Lubumbashi, mais nous sommes allés travailler à 90 km de Lubumbashi.
We received there in Lubumbashi, but we went to do our work at 90 kilometers away from Lubumbashi.
Et c'était dans le poste frontalier de Kasumbalesa.
That is at Kasumbalesa border.
Nous avons également eu à visiter, outre le poste frontalier, nous sommes allés visiter le port sec de
We
Kasumbalesa,
visited the customs there and we went as far as visiting the dry ports,
qui sont les deux points importants dans notre coopération
which
économique.
are the two important points in our working relationship.
Et nous nous sommes retrouvés encore ici en Afrique du Sud, conformément à la résolution de la Grande Commission,
We met again in South Africa following our resolutions and decisions,
et qui avait décidé qu'on se réunisse ici du 2 au 5,
we decided that we have to meet here between 5th and 2nd and 5th of August.
mais suite à des agendas contraignants, nous avions décalé.
Because of some agendas, but we had to delay a bit.
Et nous avons décidé ensemble de tenir ça du 4 au 9.
And we decided together that we want to be together from the 4th to 9th of August.
J'en profite pour remercier Madame la ministre d'avoir compris qu'on avait un agenda assez chargé.
I take this opportunity to thank His Excellency the Minister to understand that we had a prior arrangement to do.
Voilà pourquoi nous avons tenu à honorer la date qui avait été retenue.
That's why we decided to honor the date that was decided, which is the 4th and 9th of August.
Et suivant les dates retenues, on n'a pas été de tout repos.
With those dates that we agreed upon, we did not really rest.
Madame la ministre a travaillé avec nous avec toute son énergie,
His Excellency Minister worked with us with all the energy,
avec toute sa disponibilité.
all disponibility.
Et nous ne saurons oublier de mettre en exergue l'accueil chaleureux dont nous avons été
Without
l'objet.
forgetting the warm welcome that we received in the country since we came,
Nous avons été bien accueillis.
we were very well received.
De l'aéroport jusqu'à nos différents endroits d'hébergement,
From
moi
the
et toute
airports
ma délégation.
to the hotel where we had to stay, including all my delegation.
Je tiens à préciser que la délégation congolaise était composée de beaucoup de personnes.
I can just tell you that the Congolese delegation came with a lot of, with many people.
Précisément 44 personnes.
Precisely 44 people.
Composées des délégués.
Which is among them we've got
des délégués généraux des grandes entreprises.
Most of the DGs of our CEOs of our companies.
Je vois le DG de Transco qui est là.
There is Transco DG.
Je vois le DG de Transacademia qui est là.
DG of Transacademia.
Je vois le DG de Congo Airways.
DG of Congo Airways.
Je vois Madame le DG de CVM.
DG of CVM.
Je vois le président de la Commission nationale de prévention routière.
President of our roads agency.
Je vois le représentant du DG de l'autorité de l'aviation civile congolaise.
Representing the DG of Civil Aviation Authority.
Et il faut aussi noter qu'il y avait la délégation de la RVA qui a déjà quitté le territoire sud-africain, qui était composée de 4 personnes.
We also had the delegation of RVA, which came and they've already left. There were 4 in total.
Il y a aussi le DG de la SNCC qui était représenté par son directeur.
And the DG also of SABC, who was represented by his director.
Outre ces très hauts cadres, j'ai le chef de division de commerce de la province du Katanga.
And the chief of division of trades of the province of Katanga.
Quand je parle de la province du Katanga, qui est représentée ici par son gouverneur, Jean-Jacques.
When I'm talking about the whole Katanga province, it is represented by its own governor.
Et puis bien entendu, nous sommes accompagnés par notre ambassadeur ici en République sud-africaine.
Of course, we are accompanied by our Excellency Ambassador.
Pour le Katanga, il y a aussi le ministre provincial du Katanga en charge de transport.
For Katanga, we also have the MEC of Transport.
Et beaucoup d'experts du ministère et les membres de mon cabinet.
And other experts of the ministry, including all the members of the cabinet.
Donc vous comprenez que la délégation était de très haut niveau.
As you can see, the delegation was at a high caliber.
Nous avons abordé beaucoup de questions de coopération.
We discussed many questions of cooperations.
Mais nous ne les avons pas abordées dans le bureau.
But we did not do them in the offices.
Nous les avons abordées sur le site.
We were really on the, practically on the field.
Nous avons effectué beaucoup de descentes dans des sites.
We went to different sites.
Je vais citer quelques-uns parce qu'il y en a eu beaucoup en 3 jours. Bon, ce que je ne vais pas citer, donc à m'excuser.
I can only mention some because we had many, but those that I'm not going to mention now, they must just bear with me.
Nous avons visité Transnet.
We visited Transnet.
Nous avons visité hier c'était quoi là? Gibela Plaza.
Gibela Plaza.
Nous avons visité Gobert.
We visited Gobert.
Nous avons visité Sunrise.
We did visit Sunrail.
Et tant d'autres. Excusez-moi pour ce que c'est.
Je
parle de mémoire, je n'ai pas la liste.
Mais
je crois que nous avons travaillé sur 6 entreprises comme ça.
But I'm sure working on around 6 entities.
Mais le moment très marquant, c'était le centre de travail chez ATNS.
Especially the time that we spent with ATNS.
Et quand nous sommes là, nous avons signé les accords.
When we were there, we signed some agreements.
Il y a déjà des accords signés dans ce secteur-là.
There are already some agreements that have been signed in that sector.
Entre ATNS,
between ATNS, AXA,
et puis RACA,
SACA.
Ils ont signé avec la Régie des voies aériennes de la République démocratique
du Congo. Air traffic control from DRC.
Et c'est dans le secteur de l'aviation.
Which is in the aviation sector.
Il y a eu beaucoup d'acteurs, de domaines ciblés.
With many areas that we've been where we're supposed to look at.
Il y a eu à peu près 9 domaines ciblés.
We had almost 9 areas of concern.
Mais les 9 domaines peuvent être résumés en 3 points.
But all those 9 can be resumed in 3 points only.
La formation,
training,
l'équipement,
equipment,
et puis la modernisation de certaines infrastructures aéroportuaires.
Some of our infrastructure.
Nous n'avons pas seulement travaillé ici à Johannesburg.
We did not only work in Johannesburg.
Nous sommes allés à Durban.
We went to Durban.
Nous avons découvert une expérience merveilleuse.
We found an amazing experience.
Au niveau de Appington, voilà. Nous avons découvert une expérience fantastique, Madame la Ministre. Merci pour le travail qui s'est fait là-bas.
Fantastic experience there. Thank you, Excellency Minister.
Ça nous a beaucoup inspiré. Je crois qu'on va y travailler.
It really inspired us, and I'm sure together we'll work on that.
De là, nous sommes revenus sur Durban.
From there, we came back to Durban.
Nous avons travaillé avec au niveau aéroport international de Kinshasa.
We worked at international airport of Kinshasa.
Et nous avons aussi examiné une expérience très particulière avec Djoubel.
And we had another particular experience with Djoubel.
Un cargo qui travaille vraiment dans une zone économique spéciale.
Djoubel cargo that is working in a special economic zone.
Et l'expérience était très enrichissante.
The experience was very enriching.
Nous avons convenu avec Madame la ministre Chikunga de continuer de travailler.
We agreed with Excellency Minister Chikunga that we must carry on doing the work.
Pour explorer davantage les potentialités de coopération.
To explore more work that we must do together.
Si nous avons convenu de cette façon-là,
if we agreed in that sense,
parce que nous sommes partis du paradigme que l'Afrique doit apporter des solutions.
Because we have this logic of saying it's Africa that will bring solutions to Africans.
Et le corridor République démocratique du Congo, Afrique du Sud, est un maillon fort du continent.
And the corridor between DRC and South Africa is one of the most important corridors.
Nous sommes rentrés ici, nous sommes allés à Pretoria.
We came back here, we went to Centurion.
Et là, nous avons vécu encore une autre expérience exceptionnelle. Là, je tiens à féliciter le peuple sud-africain et son président. Parce que en Afrique du Sud, on peut fabriquer des trains.
Because in South Africa, we can manufacture trains.
Et des trains modernes.
And modern trains.
Des trains électriques.
And electric trains.
Et le personnel que j'ai vu là-bas, c'est vraiment un personnel jeune.
And the workers that I saw there are still young.
Avec une particularité.
With one particularity.
On m'a dit que dans cette industrie, il y a 45% de femmes.
I was told that in that industry, you've got 40% women.
Donc la femme africaine, sud-africaine est une femme développée.
So the African woman is employed.
Ce n'est pas une femme qui prépare dans la cuisine.
It's not only a person that's sitting in the kitchen.
C'est une femme qui est à l'avant-plan du développement du pays.
It's a person that is in the plane of developing the country.
Félicitations, Madame la Ministre.
Congratulations, Your Excellency.
Et après avoir visité tous ces sites-là,
and after visiting all those sites,
nous avons en République démocratique du Congo des entreprises correspondantes.
We have in Congo also the counterparts, so the companies that can be related to the PRASA.
Dans tous les domaines que j'ai énumérés tantôt.
In all areas that I've just mentioned now.
Dans le domaine du chemin de fer, nous avons la SNCC.
In the railways, we've got SNCC.
J'avais même rappelé qu'il y a une société qu'on oublie toujours de chemin de fer.
I even reminded that there is also another railway company that we always forgot about.
Je crois que c'est le pari que je vais prendre avec la ministre pour travailler sur cette société.
I think that will be the main thing that I'll discuss with the minister so we can work.
C'est la société de chemin de fer fleuve Ouele Ubangi.
It's a rail company, Fleuve Ouele Ubangi.
Nous allons travailler sur ça.
We will work together on that.
On commence à parler d'elle comme on parle de la SNCC et de l'ONATRA.
We're going to be talking about that company as we are talking about SNCC and ONATRA.
Nous avons l'OGFREM qui est beaucoup connu parce qu'il est dans les facilitations du commerce.
We've got OGFREM which is mostly commonly known because they are in the facilitating the trade.
L'OGFREM qui a déjà un certain nombre d'accords très avancés avec certaines firmes sud-africaines.
OGFREM has got already some agreement with some of the South African firms.
Je crois que tout à l'heure j'avais oublié de citer le DG de l'OGFREM, qu'il m'en excuse, je crois qu'il est là.
Just a reminder that earlier on when I was presenting other CEOs, I had forgotten DG or CEO of OGFREM.
Voilà, le DG OGFREM, il est là. Donc il a déjà quelques accords avec...
So he's got some agreement with some of the South African entities.
Donc chaque fois qu'on parle de port sec,
every time we talk about dry ports,
il faut toujours penser à l'OGFREM.
We must always think of OGFREM.
Et donc, il y a aussi des sociétés de transport en commun que j'ai amenées avec moi.
We also have some commuter transport that's responsible whom I brought here.
Nous avons par exemple exploré, Madame la ministre hier,
yesterday we did explore
la possibilité de voir par exemple la société de transport en commun de la République démocratique du Congo, Transco, faire une ligne directe entre Lubumbashi et Johannesburg. Pourquoi
pas? Congo has got a state-owned company that is Transco. We spoke yesterday that why can't we see Transco moving from Congo DRC to South Africa.
Ce sont des questions que nous allons examiner.
Those are questions that we will sit together and examine.
Vous avez également amené ici le DG d'un établissement public qu'on appelle Trans Academia.
I also brought a DG of one of the public company which is called Trans Academia.
Madame la ministre, Trans Academia, c'est une première expérience dans le continent africain.
Excellence Minister, the Trans Academia is one of the first in the African continent.
Le président de la République, Félix Antoine Tshisekedi, avait décidé de créer une société de transport qui n'a pour client que les étudiants.
His Excellency President Felix Tshisekedi has created a company, a state-owned company, a transport company that can only deal with students, transport only students.
Donc voilà, c'est une expérience que nous allons également
So it's also an experience that we can share
avec le peuple sud-africain.
with South African citizens.
Alors, dans tous ces domaines-là, nous avons convenu
In all areas, we agreed on
d'avoir de faciliter de coopération, de
to
collaboration,
facilitate the collaboration,
et particulièrement dans le domaine du chemin de fer.
especially when it comes to railways.
Comme j'ai dit, donc quand vous parlez chemin de fer, il faut parler train.
But when you talk about the railways, you must talk about trains as well.
Vous avez fait observer hier, Madame la ministre,
So what I observed yesterday, Excellency Minister,
que la voie ferrée en République démocratique du Congo, c'est 5000 kilomètres,
railways in Congo
5000
is
kilomètres.
5,000 kilometers.
Et sur les 5000 kilomètres, il y en a plus de 3500, soit à construire, soit à moderniser,
And on
soit à réhabiliter.
on the 5,000 kilometers, we have got 3.5 that can be either rebuilt or construct completely new.
Et hier, j'avais dit là, ce sont là des opportunités d'investissement.
And I said yesterday that those are investment opportunities for SA.
Et j'ai travaillé avec mes DG qui sont restés.
And I was working with my DGs that are around here,
Ils m'ont déjà, les DG, particulièrement celui de l'ONATRA,
especially the one of Onatra,
il m'a confirmé être en contact avec Transnet.
who confirmed to me that they are already in talks with Transnet.
Donc nous allons appuyer de l'accélérateur pour avoir des actions concrètes.
So we'll try to accelerate in terms of, in order to have a concrete solution.
Mesdames et messieurs de la presse,
Ladies and gentlemen of press,
je voudrais également, à votre intention, relever que
I would like also to attention to read some.
Madame la ministre et moi-même
The Excellency Minister and myself
avons convenu de ce que les experts vont se retrouver en République démocratique du Congo à Lubumbashi
we agreed that most all the experts of both sides must gather together in Lubumbashi
avant la fin de ce mois
before the end of this month
en vue d'examiner la façon de concrétiser
in order to examine the way of making into practice all the decisions that we make here,
toutes les bonnes intentions que nous avons pu fixer ici.
whatever we've decided here.
Et c'est à cette occasion-là, et j'en demeure convaincu,
It's in that occasion that I'm still confident
que nous aurons vraiment des actions physiques,
that we have physical actions,
hormis ce qui est déjà signé entre la
putting
RVA
aside all those that we've signed with RVA,
et entre la RVA et les trois opérateurs aériens de
between
l'Afrique du
RVA
Sud.
and other three operators in the aeroplane space.
La particularité aussi en ce qui concerne le train et le chemin de fer,
You know, in particular in terms of as far as trains is concerned in the railways,
c'est qu'en Afrique du Sud,
that in South Africa,
on a créé deux sociétés différentes selon qu'il s'agit de passagers ou de...
you've created two different companies, one dealing with
Ou des marchandises.
goods and the other one dealing with transporting people, passenger rail.
Mais en République démocratique du Congo,
But in Congo,
les deux sociétés, c'est-à-dire la SNCC et l'ONATRA,
two companies, meaning Onatra and SNCC,
font les deux au même moment.
they are doing both at the same time. So meaning transporting passengers and goods.
Je voudrais également relever la visite du port à nos profondes de Durban.
I would like to raise also one issue, the visit that we did in Durban at the ports of like the deep sea, deep water.
Nous avons eu des échanges très enrichissants
We also have some interesting exchange
en ce qui concerne le balisage,
in terms of how we're going to look at all their equipment
la gestion du port
and how that they handling their ports
et d'autres questions connexes liées à la gestion du port.
and everything that is related to port system or management.
Donc vous aurez constaté que les 3 jours ici ont été très denses,
So if you've noticed, these 3 days were very hectic,
très denses d'activités, de réflexions,
with many activities and some of the thinking around.
Dans le seul et unique but de
In the
renforcer
only
la coopération entre les deux pays
objective to increase the good cooperation between the two countries.
et par voie de conséquence
And following that,
d'améliorer tant soit peu
so that we can do it as quick as possible,
les conditions de vie de nos populations respectives.
to improve the life of our two citizens.
Voilà ce que je peux vous dire sur ce qu'a été notre séjour qui
This
se
is what
poursuit
we can
encore.
review on what was our 3 days, and I'm still around,
Et notre séjour se poursuit encore.
and our mission is still carrying on.
Madame la ministre, il nous reste de visiter.
Excellence Minister, it's up to, we remain with a visit.
On nous a dit qu'il y a une usine de fabrication de bus aussi ici.
I was told that there is a company that manufactures buses.
Et nous allons prendre quelques contacts avec une société d'aviation pour le compte de Congo Airways ici.
We will get some contact as well with Congolese, with Congo Airways, which is the same as South African Airways.
Voilà, donc le séjour a été très rempli.
Okay, you see, this is what happened. So my stay here was very, very full.
Mais je ne saurais vraiment pas clore mon petit mot ici
I can't finish up my word here
sans épingler le merveilleux dîner que vous nous avez offert hier soir.
without acknowledging the dinner, marvelous dinner that you offered us last night.
Et j'ai compris que les Congolais et les Sud-Africains dansent de la même manière.
I can understand, and then I saw now that Congolese and South Africans can dance the same way.
En tout cas, si ce n'est pas par les pieds, c'est par les épaules.
If it's not by feet, it's by your shoulders.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
Madame,
merci beaucoup, Excellency. We just allow the Minister of Transport in South Africa to make her remarks at this point. Thank you.
Nous venons de donner l'occasion à notre Excellence ministre de l'Afrique du Sud de mettre quelques points, de remarques sur quelques points.
Thank you very much, Director General of the Department of Transport.
Merci beaucoup, Directeur Général du Département des Transports.
Advocate Mlao.
L'avocat Mlao.
Thank you very much, Minister of Transport and Channels of Communication of the Democratic Republic
Merci
of
beaucoup,
Congo.
Excellence, Monsieur le Ministre de la RDC.
His Excellency Minister Mark Ekila Likombo,
Son Excellence, Ministre Mike Ekile-Kombe.
Governor of the Province of Haut-Katanga,
Gouverneur de la province de Haut-Katanga.
Excellency Gatwe,
Son Excellence, Jacques Kiabula.
Provincial Minister of Transport, Mr. Kawisa,
Ministre provincial de Transport, M. Kaulisa Robert.
Ambassador of the DRC to South Africa,
Excellence,
His
l'ambassadeur de la RDC en Afrique
Excellency
du Sud.
Binene,
Son Excellence, Fidel Binene.
Consulate General of South Africa to DRC,
Consul général de l'Afrique du Sud
Excellency
au
Ms
Congo.
Sindisiwe Chikunga,
Mrs. Tsai Lombele.
delegation of senior government officials and CEOs of transport, state-owned companies and public entities of the DRC and South Africa,
Ainsi que la délégation de tous les experts et les hauts cadres de tous les deux côtés, Afrique du Sud et Congo.
members of the media,
Membres des médias,
ladies and gentlemen.
chers et chers.
Your Excellency, I had the privilege and honor to welcome you and your delegation to our beautiful country.
Son Excellence, j'ai le privilège de vous accueillir ici ainsi que votre délégation dans notre beau pays.
During our last visit to your country, your
Pendant notre visite au
hospitality,
Congo, votre hospitalité
and warmth with which we were welcomed made us feel at home.
et la façon dont nous étions accueillis,
I trust we're equally able to make you feel at home here.
j'espère que je vous ai fait aussi vivre presque la même chose chez nous ici.
And because this is your home,
Parce que ça, c'est votre maison.
The bonds that bind us run deep and have withstood the test of time.
Notre lien qui nous unit restera pour longtemps.
Our mutual commitment to working together for the good of our people is testament to the strength of these bonds.
Notre engagement de travailler ensemble pour aider notre peuple est vraiment au cœur de toutes ces discussions.
Your visit is a practical expression of our commitment to give effect.
Votre visite ici, c'est une expérience pratique.
To give effect to the spirit and the letter of the Memorandum of Understanding of Cooperation on Transport-related matters.
C'est pour achever à ce que nous avions signé comme mémorandum au Congo. Nous sommes d'accord
Concluded between our two governments in 2022.
que les deux pays ont conclu en 2022.
This is a commitment we share without any equivocation.
Ça, c'est un engagement que nous partageons sans hésiter.
On Saturday, we witnessed the signing of several agreements
Le samedi, nous avons vu la signature de beaucoup d'accords.
by the aviation state companies and public entities of South
Ça, c'était dans le
Africa
secteur d'aviation de la RDC avec les entités sud-africaines,
and the DRC.
ici la RDC.
These agreements represent a new chapter in our collaboration
Ces accords représentent un chapitre nouveau dans notre collaboration
and pave the way of a stronger,
et ça planifie la route vers
more integrated aviation sector
un secteur d'aviation bien intégré
that will benefit both our nations
qui
and the entire
bénéficiera les
African continent.
deux nations ainsi que notre continent.
South Africa and DRC share a rich history,
L'Afrique du Sud et la RDC partagent une histoire très riche.
and our destinies are intertwined.
Notre destinée est ensemble.
By fostering a strong partnership in aviation sector,
Dans le partenariat dans le secteur d'aviation,
we are building on this history and creating a new chapter
nous
of
sommes en train de
progress and
construire cette
development.
histoire et créer encore un autre chapitre de relation.
The agreements encompass a range of areas,
Cet accord inclut beaucoup de secteurs
from sharing technical expertise
en échangeant les expertises techniques
and best practices to promoting safety and security
et de bonnes
measures.
pratiques pour promouvoir la sécurité et la sûreté.
Our commitment to a seamless and efficient air transport network
Nos engagements pour un transport meilleur
will create an enabling environment for increased connectivity,
va créer un environnement qui va augmenter la productivité,
trade and investment between our
le
countries.
commerce et l'investissement entre les deux pays.
Furthermore, the agreements aim to enhance training and
Plus
capacity
encore,
building
notre accord va jusqu'au niveau de formation
for aviation personnel
pour le personnel dans le secteur d'aviation,
by investing in skills and knowledge
en
of our
investissant
people.
dans nos peuples et leurs connaissances.
We ensure the sustainability and growth of the aviation
Nous assurons
industry,
qu'il y ait cette stabilité à agrandir le secteur d'aviation,
which will in turn drive economic development
ce qui assistera au développement économique
and create job
et
opportunities,
créer d'emplois, les opportunités d'emploi pour le peuple,
particularly for our young people.
surtout pour nos jeunes.
The signing of various agreements by our aviation public
La
entities
signature de beaucoup d'accords à travers nos dirigeants respectifs dans le secteur d'aviation
is a shared statement that our progress and prosperity between our nations
c'est une déclaration qui montre que notre prospérité et la progression dans
Oui.
notre secteur,
will indeed happen.
ça va effectivement se passer.
These agreements represent a commitment to enhancing our
Ces accords
aviation sectors,
représentent l'engagement,
fostering collaboration,
nos engagements de collaborer ensemble
and of course promoting regional integration
et
in
promouvoir
Africa.
l'intégration régionale.
I'm pleased that both the workshop hosted by AXA
Je suis très contente que tous les deux ateliers
and signing
d'AXA
of the agreements with aviation entities
et la signature des accords avec les secteurs,
give
sociétés dans le secteur d'aviation,
practical expression to some of the
ça nous donne une
decisions
expression pratique que dans
of the
quelques décisions
National Commission, that is BNC, that was held in Kinshasa on the 6th of July this year.
tout ça provient de notre commission mixte que nous avons à Kinshasa cette année au mois de juin.
In the several engagements we had over the last 4 years,
On a pris beaucoup d'engagements pendant les 4 ans passés.
we have had the occasion to interact with our various entities.
On a eu les occasions de discuter avec nos différentes entités.
In fact, of the last 4 days, not 4 years, I'm sorry about that.
En effet, ce n'est
Over
pas
the
4 ans,
last
c'est pour
4
les 4
days.
jours passés.
Yes, of course, and they showcase the work of our entities
pour montrer le travail de nos entités respectives
in areas of
dans le
aviation,
secteur d'aviation,
maritime,
maritime
and roads.
et pour les routes.
His Excellency Minister Likombe and his
Son
delegation
Excellence, Monsieur le ministre, avec sa délégation,
had the opportunity to interact with
ils
AXA,
ont eu les opportunités de s'échanger avec AXA,
ATNS,
ATNS,
SACA,
SACA,
SANRAL,
Sanbrel,
CBRTI,
CBRTL,
as well as PRASA
ainsi que PRASA
and Transnet.
et Transnet.
This visit cements our cooperation,
Ces visites cimentent encore notre coopération,
premised on a shared vision for the future. Premised on the vision for the future
qui prépare la vision du futur,
that transcends our national borders.
ce qui réunit nos frontières nationales.
South Africa is committed to supporting the development
L'Afrique du
of our
Sud est déterminée
neighbors,
de supporter le développement de nos voisins,
particularly in our neighbors' infrastructure,
surtout dans les infrastructures de nos voisins.
because we believe that a well-connected region is essential
Je pense que si nous avons une connexion des routes,
for sustained economic growth and prosperity.
ça pourra assister au développement économique de nos
In
pays.
this spirit, we have agreed to extend our capabilities to assist DRC
En suivant ça, nous sommes dit que nous allons développer notre capacité
in enhancing its transport network across all modes,
afin qu'on puisse améliorer le secteur du transport dans tous les domaines.
because we understand that transport is an industry that propels trade,
Puisque nous comprenons que le transport, c'est l'industrie
tourism,
qui donne le tourisme,
economic growth,
développement économique,
cultural exchange,
échange culturel,
and people-to-people
ainsi que
communication.
la communication des personnes entre eux.
Its potential transform lives and uplift communities, and that cannot be underestimated.
Donc on ne peut pas estimer cette collaboration que nous devons entamer.
Our cooperation will facilitate the exchange of knowledge and
Notre
best
coopération va
practices
aussi
between our
faciliter l'échange
nations.
des experts entre les deux pays.
Our respective teams will learn from each other's
Nos équipes
experiences,
respectives vont apprendre entre elles,
and this cross-pollination of ideas will undoubtedly lead to innovation solutions
avec cet échange des idées, ça va vraiment faciliter à transformer l'échange du développement
to address challenges and seize
pour
opportunities
adresser les
across all
challenges
modes
que
of
nous avons et découvrir les opportunités qu'on peut travailler ensemble.
It is in the spirit, Your Excellency, that
Dans
I
cet
do
esprit que
accept your
j'accepte
invitation
votre invitation
to travel to DRC
de
again
venir au Congo encore
before the end of this month.
avant la fin de ce mois.
I want to believe that our officials will therefore meet and prepare for that
Je
visit,
crois que nos officiers aussi seront prêts et préparés pour
so
cette
that
visite.
when we are there again, we
Oui.
can actually see tangible things.
Dès que nous sommes là, nous pouvons maintenant voir, palper quelque chose de tangible.
Over and above that, Your Excellency, we have agreed on a variety of issues
À part ça, nous avons aussi, nous étions aussi d'accord de différentes
that will
Okay.
translate into formal agreements
qui vont se transformer sur des accords formels
and tangible outcomes driven by our respective departments and state-owned companies.
ainsi que trouver des solutions selon ce que nos experts nous ont donné.
And indeed, the role of the private sector is critical, not
Mm.
only for investment
Bien
in
sûr, le rôle
infrastructure,
du secteur privé est très critique, pas seulement dans le secteur d'investissement,
but of course, to provide their expertise in the
mais bien
implementation
sûr,
of
donner aussi
projects.
leur expertise, surtout dans la préparation des projets.
So public-private partnership remains the
Dans le
cornerstone of our
partenariat
developmental agenda.
public-privé,
We have agreed to cooperate in the following
nous sommes mis
areas.
d'accord de travailler dans le secteur suivant.
One, through the signing of the agreement with RVA
La signature des accords avec RVA,
and SACA,
SACA,
ATNS,
ATNS
and AXA.
et puis AXA.
In our rail,
Et dans notre chemin de fer,
our government entities will work with the relevant organs of
comme
state in the
entité gouvernementale,
DRC
nous allons travailler ensemble avec nos homologues de la
in the
RDC
development,
pour le développement,
construction of rail
la
infrastructure,
construction de l'infrastructure,
which includes stations,
ce
pairways,
qui inclut les stations,
signaling,
le signal,
electrical installations,
l'électrification,
and other related
ainsi
infrastructure.
que d'autres infrastructures par rapport avec le
Also, Sandral will work with relevant state organs of the Democratic Republic of
avec ses
Congo
homologues au Congo
on projects relating to road construction,
dans des projets de construction de routes,
rehabilitation,
réhabilitation,
maintenance and other road
la
infrastructure
maintenance
projects.
ainsi que d'autres projets à travers avec la voie des routes.
Such projects will include public-private partnership
Ces projets-là vont inclure le partenariat
that involve
public-privé
private sector participation in road projects.
qui va indiquer que nous aurons besoin de la participation du secteur
These will
privé.
be from both countries, that is
Ce
South
sera
Africa and
des deux
DRC.
côtés, de RDC et puis Afrique du Sud.
On cross-border matters,
Pour ce qui est des transfrontaliers,
we noted that our cross-border road transport agency has
nous avons
been in
constaté que les
negotiation
agences de transport sont en négociation
with office of the OGF frame,
avec le bureau de GFM,
a sister agency in DRC responsible for cargo movement.
avec la compagnie sœur qui est responsable du mouvement des cargos.
These negotiations relate to the entity acquiring the cross-Asia permit issuing
Ces
system
négociations résument sur le OGFM ou nos compatriotes de trouver et d'utiliser le système EASY
developed by the CBRTA.
développé par CBRTA.
Your Excellency, Mr. Likombe,
Mr. Likombe,
I want to assure you that South Africa is fully committed
je
to
veux
the
vous rassurer
success
que l'Afrique du Sud est vraiment déterminée
of the MOU between our two countries.
de suivre les accords signés avec les deux pays.
As I've indicated, we have therefore agreed that
Comme
various
indiqué avant,
teams
nous sommes d'accord que
responsible for different modes
les équipes, il y a beaucoup d'équipes responsables des différents secteurs.
must, and I say must, immediately start working on the
Ils
technical details
doivent déjà commencer à travailler dans les détails techniques, sur les
towards
détails
the
techniques,
implementation of what we have agreed to,
vers l'implémentation de ce que nous sommes mis d'accord.
and finalize all administrative
Et
processes
finaliser tout le processus
to
administratif
ensure that agreements are concluded,
afin que ces accords soient conclus.
particularly the technical agreements.
Surtout les accords techniques.
This indeed will pave the way for a follow-up
Ça va
engagement
maintenant planifier.
in Lubumbashi by the end of this month, as you have said, Your Excellency.
Ça va planifier notre visite de Lubumbashi avant la fin de ce mois, comme vous l'avez dit.
Thank you again, Your Excellency,
Merci
Mr.
beaucoup, Son
Likombo,
Excellence, encore,
for gracing us with your presence.
de nous avoir honorés avec votre présence.
And thank you to all members of your delegation
Merci à tous les membres de votre délégation
for their contribution in giving practical
pour leur
expression
contribution et donner leur pratique expression
to the decisions of the BNC and our
sur les
cooperation.
décisions de la commission mixte et de la coopération.
Let us work hand in hand to create a brighter future for
Travaillons
Africa's
ensemble pour
transport
créer un
industry
futur meilleur
and the people we serve.
pour tous les deux pays ainsi que le peuple que nous servons.
In the spirit of the resolution of the BNC
Dans
held
l'esprit
on
de la
the 16th
résolution
of
de
July
la commission mixte
2023
au mois de juillet
in Kinshasa, co-chaired by our respective
à
presidents,
Kinshasa, qui était animé par les deux présidents.
His Excellency President Felix Antoine
Son
Tshisekedi
Excellence le
Tshilombo,
président Félix Antoine Tshisekedi Tshilombo,
and President of that is the President of the Democratic Republic of Congo,
qui est le président de la République démocratique du Congo,
and His Excellency
Ainsi que son Excellence.
Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa,
Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa,
President of the Republic of South
le
Africa.
président de la République d'Afrique du Sud.
Our cooperation will also give practical
Notre
expression
collaboration va donner aussi une expression
to
pratique
mutual cooperation and
pour
multilateral
une
forums.
coopération mutuelle.
Your Excellency,
Son Excellence,
as you have noted, South Africa's candidacy for election
comme vous l'avez constaté, que nous sommes en train de préparer ces élections.
into the Council of the International Maritime Organization,
Nous préparons les élections de notre membre dans le Conseil mondial maritime sur le droit maritime.
at the forthcoming 33rd session of the Assembly
Ce sera à la troisième session de l'Assemblée.
in November 2023 in London.
En novembre 2023, ce sera en Grande-Bretagne.
We have no doubt that we can rely on
Nous
your
avons
vote
vraiment des doutes que nous allons
in,
avoir votre vote
in support of our candidates.
pour supporter notre candidat.
I want again to say thank you,
Je veux
Minister.
encore une fois vous dire merci, Ministre, Excellence.
I am told that you can dance.
On m'a dit que vous pouvez danser.
I thank you.
Merci.
Asante sana.
Asante.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. Ladies and gentlemen, I think at this point we'll just give the esteemed ministers a moment to sign the joint.
Je pense que passé cette période, nous allons donner l'occasion à nos ministres respectifs
the joint statement summarizing the points of agreement
qui résume les points d'accord
covered by this visit.
Que la visite ici a couvert.
Thereafter, I would just like to indicate that we will ask for a brief round.
Je vais juste indiquer qu'on va demander qu'on ait
if there are any questions at all.
Questions.
If that step is not necessary, we'll move to
si cette étape n'est pas nécessaire, nous allons progresser
a moment of exchange of gifts.
Un moment d'échange de cadeaux.
Because there's still a full program. Hereafter, the entourage of the minister still has to go to the bus manufacturing facility. The Minister of Transport has to go back to Cape Town. So there's still some work to do. Thank you very much.
Merci.
Ministers,
this is from us. And that's one. All the modes of transport, aviation, rail, roads, maritime, including the public transport. This is to say, from South Africa to yourself. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup.
And then this one, Minister, it actually shows you the interchange that you flew over. And of course, this will be the entrance to the OR Tambo International Airport. Yes, you can remember us.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes.
Minister, this is a bag. I do have this bag. So I thought that the minister
Ça c'est un sac. Moi aussi j'ai ce sac.
This is the bag.
Ça c'est un sac que nous donnons comme cadeau. Merci.
Thank you, Minister. Ministers.
Your Excellency.
If ministers can just take their seats.
Then I also have the governor.
The governor.
Ah, c'est le cadeau de Son Excellence. Je vais ouvrir,
This token of appreciation from us.
Voilà pour votre appréciation.
Also the ambassador, DRC to South
Pour
Africa.
l'ambassadeur de la RDC en Afrique du Sud.
Then of course the MEC.
Bien sûr pour notre ministre provincial.
The MEC.
Le ministre provincial des Transports.
From us to yourself is a token of appreciation.
Merci appréciation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ministers. We just want to give this opportunity to members of the media.
Je veux donner l'occasion aux médias.
Excellency is present, so that they don't say we didn't give them. We'll just take one round of questions, and that's it when we close. Any questions from the media by show of hands?